The Liebherr 81K is a fast erecting tower crane and it can lift a maximum of 6 tonnes, and the jib is 45 metres long. This version of the model also includes a transport vehicle. Surprisingly, even though there's more in it, this box is actually smaller than the box size for the 81K when it's sold on its own. There's no information supplied about the real crane, but inside the box you've got the expanded polystyrene trays and there's a pretty good instruction sheet, although it doesn't cover anything about the transport vehicles. The box is factory sealed, so just like a surgeon you need to put it under the knife to open it up and see what's inside. The 81K comes out of the box and it's fully folded up for transport, and it's also extremely well wrapped. In fact, you need to be a little bit careful removing all of the packaging. We won't cover the reeving of this crane in the video because it was covered in a previous video. Inside the box the parts are available separately. The 81K is sold as model 870, the set of transport dollies is sold as model 8702, and the Mercedes-Benz support truck is available as model 92002. For the assembly, we'll just put the model in a transport configuration. To begin with, the rear dolly is positioned at the back of the crane body, and it's secured in place using brass screws using the tool provided. The attachment of the front axle doesn't need any permanent fixing. There are a couple of hooks on the crane body and they fit into slots on the front dolly. Once it's hooked into place and lowered, the crane is supported on the wheels. Then the outriggers just need to be positioned and we can hook the crane up to the transport truck. It's easy enough to do if you're used to pushing small things into small holes. It's just a little bit fiddly to get it in right, you know what I mean. However, once it is all joined up, the truck does a good job towing the crane. And in this configuration you get quite an interesting model to display just like this, but how big is it? Well, put the tape out and it's 50 centimetres or nearly 20 inches. Starting with the Mercedes-Benz Actros truck and its typical NZG with the chassis being all metal, and the tyres are mounted on decent metal wheels. The cab has two-tone textured mirrors, and a distinctive Actros front with a protection plate at the bottom, and a dummy number plate. On top of the cab there's a see-through roof light, beacon lights and aerials, and the load body is a solid metal casting. At the rear the outriggers are metal with visible screw thread pistons, and the rear lights have nice plastic lenses. The loader crane is a high-up and it's decently modelled with just the inner sections being plastic, but the hook is a nice metal part. The two transport dollies have nice tyres mounted on metal wheels, and there's some detailing underneath the chassis. A very delicate detail on both dollies is the light stalks, and there are lights and number plates on the rear axle unit. Moving on to the 81K, the base of the crane is all metal and the toothed slewing ring is clearly visible. The large cabinets are nicely painted with good graphics, and the winch drums and motors look realistic. The counterweight slabs have got the Liebherr name embossed within the casting. There are climbing rungs on the front and tiny lifting points modelled on top. On the front of the tower is a nicely printed capacity board. The tower is a nicely cast piece of lattice work, although it doesn't have any ladders modelled inside. But it is very strong, and ladders aside, it looks very realistic. At the top of the tower the cab is nicely formed with plastic sides, and an operator's seat can be seen inside. One very good aspect of the model engineering is the jib. It's metal with all the lattice work represented, so that makes it a little bit heavy. But the profile and geometry is very straight and very good, and the guying system is also very accurately dimensioned. And it's an achievement to get all the parts made to exactly the right length so that the jib profile is so good. Other details on the jib include the trolley and erection motors, and the hook block is metal with a rotating hook. Let's get trucking with the truck and see how it trucks along, and it's no problem because it rolls well enough. The rear wheels are all fixed onto common axles so they spin together, and at the front the two steering axles are linked. But the mechanism is tight and it doesn't move a great deal. Also on the review model the alignment of the front wheels wasn't quite right. The other main feature on the truck is the high-ab loader crane, and it's got a couple of short metal outrigger beams which can pull out. They are a little bit loose in the holders and you can lower the pads just by unscrewing. But it's a simple detail because the screw threads are visible. Opening up the high-ab is all quite straightforward. The rams that control it are nicely stiff and they will hold any pose. And the whole loader crane can be rotated quite smoothly. Now, left or right? Well, if you go right, you can't go wrong. The extension of the boom is quite smooth, with enough friction that it will pose in most positions. You can have it reaching high, and in that case it's about 8.5 inches or 22 centimetres. The two dollies are quite nicely engineered. The wheels spin easily and they roll along very smoothly. The same is also true of the front axle. And in addition, the tow bar goes in and out, and you can move it up and down and it steers very well. Moving on now to the features of the 81K crane. It can be rotated and the trolley can be positioned along the jib by hand. But bear in mind the crane can't carry much load before it wants to tip. Also, the trolley did not freely move over the first articulation point, and it took some effort to get it across. Once there, it can move down the rest of the jib, but you have to position the Liebherr signs correctly so the trolley can pass underneath. Of course, any crane model should be able to raise and lower the hook, and this one does work. All you have to do is insert a special key into the winch and turn it, and up the hook goes. And there's enough friction in the system that it doesn't unwind. Fully erected, the model is impressive because it's large. It stands 2 feet or over 60 centimetres tall. And in terms of length, it's even bigger. It's about 38 inches or nearly a metre. Once the crane has finished its work, we can go into the Cranes Etc. Super Speed mode. And we can set about dismantling the crane ready for its move to the next review site. Although, to be honest, once a model's been well treated at Cranes Etc., why would it want to go anywhere else? Once the jib's folded, the mast can be lowered, and after that the counterweight is removed and the locking screws are removed from the bottom of the mast. The tricky part is then to lower the whole thing down to a transport position. This set, including the transport vehicle, gives the 81K a different dimension. It poses well in the transport configuration and all parts are well detailed with good functionality. Overall, it's a nice implementation of a complex machine and is highly recommended.